Constance Marten and Mark Gordon, Bolton, England. When Constance Marten, born into an aristocratic home, began a relationship with an ex-convict, Mark Gordon, in 2016, her family distanced themselves from her. Her family may have been right to be worried because 7 years later, Constance and her lover will be in the news, and not for the right reasons. As a youngster, Mark Gordon, who was born in Birmingham, United Kingdom, had moved to Florida, USA with his mother. In 1989, at the age of 14, he broke into a neighbor's home and raped her at knife point. He was deported to his home country after serving his jail term in 2010. 6 years later, he met Marten and began an ill-fated relationship. On the 5th of January 2023, police found a car belonging to Marten and Gordon abandoned and on fire in Bolton, Greater Manchester, just by the M61 motorway. This is the last time they were seen. Authorities declared the couple wanted, fearing their living condition is not healthy for a child and following reports that the couple have concealed the birth of their child. Therefore, the child hasn't had any medical attention since her birth in January. The police swung into action immediately, seeking to find them. The police went as far as offering a £10,000 reward for information that leads them to the family. Marten and Gordon were finally arrested at Brighton on the 27th of February, but their baby was nowhere to be found.
We begin this hour with the couple who disappeared with their newborn baby a month ago being arrested overnight in Brighton, but their child is nowhere to be found. Constance Marten and Mark Gordon were found after they were spotted by a member of the public. Police have now launched an urgent search for the baby, who's not thought to have received any medical attention since her birth.
The police quickly mounted an extensive search of the area using sniffer dogs, drones, helicopters, and thermal cameras to tear the place up.
The baby was not with them, and we have not found the baby as yet. The police helicopter, sniffer dogs, thermal imaging cameras and drones are being used to assist officers on the ground. We currently have over 200 officers from multiple units across the Metropolitan Police and Sussex Police involved in the search.
More than 200 police officers were involved in this search, and after 2 days, they finally found the little child, wrapped in a plastic bag and hidden in a shed at the allotment. The baby, a little girl apparently named Victoria, was dead. Marten and Gordon were charged with gross negligence and manslaughter. The Curious Case of the Jamisons, Eufaula, Oklahoma. This video is the last footage of the Jamison family, captured on a security camera on the day they disappeared off the face of the earth. Their death raised numerous questions and offered very few answers. Bobby Jamison, his wife Sherilyn, and his daughter Madison all disappeared just after the 8th of October 2009. At first, everyone believed they'd simply chosen to disappear. They had no real ties, lived on disability, and looked exactly like a family that would simply up and disappear wherever they desired. But there was more to the story. The police commenced a search for the Jamisons a few days after their disappearance, but were only able to locate the family's pickup truck, abandoned at Latimer County, just about an hour from Eufaula. The content of the truck raised further questions and provided no answers. The Jamisons were nowhere to be found, but in the trunk were their ID cards, mobile phones, wallets, a GPS, and most disturbing of all, $32,000 in cash. The family dog was sitting in the back seat looking very malnourished but alive. All of these pointed to a family that stepped away from their car for a moment, hoping to return very shortly, but they haven't returned for days. The other big question points to the huge cash in the car. Both husband and wife weren't working, they were living on disability, so where did the money come from? In November 2013, just over 4 years after their disappearance, 2 hunters stumbled upon the remains of 2 adults and a child in the forest around Latimer County, very close to the spot where the truck had been found. By July 2014, the Oklahoma Medical Examiner's Office confirmed that the heavily decomposed remains belonged to the missing Jamisons, but no one could tell what really happened to them, especially because of the heavily decomposed state of the corpses. One of the leading theories suggests that the Jamisons might have been involved in a drug deal gone wrong. The huge sum of money in their truck pointed towards a deal of that sort, but nobody's been able to piece the clues together for a clearer picture of this tragic business. The McStay Family, Fallbrook, California. The McStay family was just like every other family in Fallbrook, California. As a matter of fact, they might have been better off than most. Joseph McStay worked and owned a successful company that designed decorative fountains, while his wife, Summer McStay, was a licensed real estate agent. They had 2 sons, 4-year-old Gianni and 3-year-old Joseph Jr. This cozy family suddenly fell off the face of the earth in February of 2010, raising numerous questions and revealing a disturbing web of lies, intrigue, and betrayal. What really happened? The shocking answer is no one knows, at least not with any real clarity. Joseph McStay Sr. spent part of his day with his father, Patrick, on the 4th of February 2010. Later, he would excuse himself, saying that he had a lunch meeting. This would be the last real contact before the family would disappear, never to be seen alive again. No one reported them missing. The McStays are known to take the odd trip now and then, but when a week went by and no one heard from them, Joseph's brother, Michael McStay, headed over to their home to see if anyone was there. There was no one. He found stale food, his brother's prescription glasses, all of which pointed to a hasty exit, but there was no sign that something had gone wrong.
Inside, investigators find a puzzling scene. Bowls of popcorn in front of the television, eggs on the counter along with a banana. Outside, another surprise, the McStay's dogs tied up in the yard. Did the family leave on their own in a hurry, thinking they'd be back? Or was it something more sinister? Did someone they know and perhaps trust force them to leave?
They filed a missing persons report and the police swung into action. The first sight of the McStays was at the Mexican border. The family's trooper had been towed from a spot near the border on the 8th of February. Soon, surveillance video of a family marching across the border to Mexico surfaced. This family matched the description of the McStays to a T, and the police began to cool their hunt. On the computer left behind by the McStays, the police found research that cooled their search further. What documents do children need for traveling to Mexico? They also found research on Spanish language lessons. This appeared to settle the question for some, but Summer McStay's sister didn't believe it. She maintained that Summer's passport had recently expired and hadn't yet been renewed. This is important because while the family could get into Mexico without passports, Summer will need a passport to return to the US.
That's certainly part of this huge puzzle. What happened here? Was that part staged? Did they actually cross into Mexico? We still think that there's a strong possibility that they did. When did they come back? Were they under duress? I mean, these are all questions that we want to find out.
Besides the passport, it was quite telling that the McStays had $100,000 in their bank accounts at the time of their departure and afterwards, untouched. Investigations assume the family left the United States voluntarily since there was no evidence to the contrary. A neighbor's security camera had captured the McStay trooper leaving the McStay home on the morning of the 4th of February. All trails died down until almost 4 years later. On November 11, 2013, a dirt biker stumbled on 4 remains buried in a shallow grave in a desert around Victorville, California.
The sheriff's department is stumped. Who is this family, and why would anyone murder them, including their 2 small children? And why bury them here in the middle of the California desert? An investigator with the coroner's office reaches out to the Justice Department, asking them to check their records for any missing family of 4. It isn't long before the Justice Department tells investigators here to look at the McStay family case. When
Patrick McStay heard the news, he feared the worst. 2 of the bodies were quickly identified as Joseph and his wife, Summer. Further examination carried out by the San Bernardino County authorities led them to rule the deaths as homicide caused by blunt force trauma. The only other thing found in one of those graves where Summer and one of her sons were buried was a sledgehammer. All eyes immediately fell on one man, Charles Chase Merritt. Chase worked with Joseph in his company, and the last call from Joseph's phone before his disappearance was to Chase. The call had gone to voicemail. Several red flags were pointing to Chase. Besides his existing criminal records, burglary and receiving stolen goods, the police believed Joseph was shutting Chase out of his business after discovering how poor his services were, as well as the money that Chase was stealing under the table. But the most telling of all was the presence of Chase's DNA in the McStay trooper found at the Mexican border. After the disappearance of the McStays, Chase had cashed out over $21,000 from the company business account.
As far as you know, you were the last person, or at least one of the last people to see him, right?
Yeah. When he left Rancho Cucamonga, nobody else, although I think there's another person or 2 that he talked to, I'm not sure.
But you were the last person he saw.
I'm definitely the last person he saw.
Chase Merritt was arrested on the 7th of November 2014 and charged with 4 counts of murder. The trial dragged on for several reasons until its conclusion on the 10th of June of 2019. Chase was found guilty and sentenced to death. He's currently on death row. The Bever Family, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. The voice you hear in this recording is the scared voice of 12-year-old Daniel Bever calling 911 to report something that will break your heart.
So, okay. Are you the only one there?
No, my brother's attacking my family.
Your dad is attacking your family?
No, my brother. He has an idea stealing me. Oh, millions of people now.
Okay, who's attacking your family?
What?
Who's attacking your family?
Yes.
Who is it? Do they?
It was the 22nd of July, 2015 at 11:30 p.m. Most families should be retiring to bed, but the Bever family were witnessing the most gruesome thing ever. Robert Bever and his brother, Michael Bever, had endured abuse from their parents, David Bever and April Bever, and had decided to take matters into their own hands and extract their revenge on their parents. No one knows why they extended their murderous arms to their siblings. David was both physically and verbally abusive, and this will form the motive for the gruesome murders at 709 Magnolia Court, where the Beavers lived. By the time police responded to the 911 call, 5 members of the family were dead. David and his wife April, as well as their children Danielle, who made the call, Christopher, aged 6, and Victoria, aged 5. Crystal Bever, aged 13, was seriously injured, but she survived alongside her 2-year-old sister, Autumn.
When they arrived, they observed blood on the front of the house and heard some faint noises from inside the house. It's going to take some time. It certainly weighs heavily on our hearts, not only for the victims, but also those officers who have to go through that.
The Bever boys didn't plan to end their massacre in their home. They planned to leave a trail of bodies and blood that will surpass the toll at the Columbine High School massacre of 1999, the deadliest mass shooting in Colorado. Danielle's 911 call didn't just save her sisters, but also innocents who would have been defenseless against the carnage of the Bever brothers. Both Robert and Michael took off through the back door the moment the cops arrived on the scene, but were apprehended quickly without further casualties. They were both charged with 5 counts of murder.
The attorneys for the eldest Bever brother are getting ready to defend the 19-year-old. In motions filed late last week, Robert Bever's defense team aimed to limit emotion and remembrance of the victims in the courtroom. Robert and his 17-year-old brother Michael are charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. The boys allegedly stabbed their parents and 3 siblings to death last summer. They are both due in court next month.
The DuPont de Ligonnès family, Nantes, France. Xavier Pierre-Marie DuPont de Ligonnès was born into an old aristocratic home in the Bavaria region of southern France. His ancestors were well-established names, one of them who became the Bishop of Rodez. Xavier wasn't as accomplished as his illustrious family, but he was an engineer, married to his beautiful wife Agnes, and together they had a little family with 4 kids. Arthur, who was studying IT in college, Thomas, who was interested in music while pursuing a college degree, and Junior and Benoit, who were both in high school. For some, this is just enough. But something was wrong, and no one knew about it until the 21st of April 2011, when the bodies of Anne, her 4 children, and their 2 dogs were found wrapped in bags and buried in their garden with some religious items for company. Xavier, husband and father, was nowhere to be found. Xavier became the prime suspect in the murders for a very good reason. In the weeks before their disturbing deaths, the family bank accounts were all closed, the kids were all withdrawn from school, and Agnes quit her job due to a mystery illness, and a note was placed on their mailbox saying, "Return all mail to the sender." Xavier himself left a letter behind. In this letter, he claims to be a secret agent working for the United States and will be entering the Witness Protection Program. In the letter he sent to his kids' school to explain their withdrawal, he explains that he and his family are moving to Australia. Their deaths have been called a methodical execution. The kids had been given sleeping pills before being shot in the head with a rifle matching their father's .22. Prior to these murders, Xavier had joined a local rifle club where he practices shooting, purchased a silencer, and gained some gun knowledge as well. He also bought garbage bags and cement. According to a message discovered on an internet forum from Agnes Dupont, her husband had said if we all die at once, then everything would be over. We would no longer miss anything. Police also found that Xavier is weighed down by significant debt. Although he's a descendant of aristocrats, his inheritance had been squandered long ago. The only pointer that Xavier is alive is the family's car that was parked in a hotel south of France. Bank withdrawals were also made from the family's accounts from this area. No one has seen him since. While the original belief was that he had taken his own life, he apparently reached out to a journalist in 2015 with the message, "I am still alive." There have been many other sightings of the man wanted in Nantes and all over the world for the murder of his entire family.